A very warm good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, viewers. I'm Matthias Ofiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Evening Review Show. Well, tonight we speak budget matters. Of course, budget discussions are underway in the National Assembly. Following the tabling of the budget, 80.4 billion it is. Well, it's an unheralded number, so big, never heard of. And for that, we have Honorable Bernadus Swartbooi in studio, the leader and the Chief Change Campaign of the Landless Peoples Movement. Welcome, sir, and good evening.
Welcome to you to parliamentary debate where you have insight into debate. So I'll welcome you to that space where we try to change things, but it's very tough.
It's very tough.
Yeah.
No, that's good, that's good. Well, 80.4 billion, money has never really been a problem in this country, but of course, the way we spend it has always been questioned. But what is your take on that? Of course, you delivered your reaction to the budget yesterday. So what has been your take? Just a brief summary on that.
Well, you know, the budget is the epitome of what politics really is all about, because what is politics? Who gets what, how, and how much, and where? And if you see the budget and the allocations that are given, you see basically the priorities of the Swartbooi party government that is in charge of the central government, that keeps on repeating the same things, gets the same results, and just keeps on changing the thematic layout of the budget. In terms of employment creation, there's nothing significant. They will be spending about 4 to 8 billion on development budget. That is far below the required 25 to 35% of development budget to achieve something. So about 14% will go to the development budget. The rest goes to operations, and that's not how you can develop a country. So this year they have said they are reviving the economy. They are apparently a caring government. None of that is true. Remember how desperate these fellows are. You invite old people to come and sit in the gallery, make a big fuss about their livelihoods and how they are struggling, only to announce a $100 increment. Yet you know that inflation is bad, and therefore the repo rate has been increased, and the cost of living exponentially has gone up. So the rhetoric doesn't match the reality, and that's really the sad part of the whole situation. There has been a good amount coming from SACU, I think in excess of 6 billion. Again, that is not sufficiently going to be deployed to productive sectors of the economy, and that really keeps us precisely where we are.
Yeah. So over the years, we've known these problems. We've mentioned that we can't spend so much on operations while neglecting the development aspect. But we've been repeating these things year in, year out. So what is it that's stopping us from really affecting the change that we need?
It's the way the Namibians vote. They keep on voting for the same people.
I knew you go to the voting.
Because at some stage, accountability is not just politicians. The citizens must also account for the types of votes that they give to ensure that they too really transform right there at the ballot box the direction of the country. For 32 years, this is the 33rd year, same language. Unemployment is a challenge. Youth unemployment is a problem. We have to diversify the economy. We have to add value to our raw material. We have to right-size and downsize the public sector. The debt to GDP is spiraling out of control. The deficit is spiraling out of control. All of it has been said. All of it has been diagnosed. But there is no political will. And just the other day, about 3,000 young people were applying for one position. It's a crisis upon a crisis upon a crisis. So here we have not necessarily a money crisis. We have an ideas crisis, but a political will that is just absent. There are things that you just got to do. If you want to deal with unemployment right now, you know, or are supposed to know, as those that have been in government, that have been exposed to various countries, that any society develops from its agricultural base. You have green schemes that have not been effective. You have sufficient water resources in Ohangwena, yet Ohangwena is one of the poorest regions in the country. It has the land, it has the water, it has the people, and the soil is not a problem. So you've got to take this, Matthew, back really to the citizens and say, is it a problem of the leaders that are elected of SWAPO? Or is it a consistent belief that we have nurtured in these people that are leading central government, that regardless of the errors they commit, they will get the vote again and again and again. So maybe we're kicking at the wrong horse. The right horse that we must be asking to answer is, what really is the type of future you want? Right now, this year, Matthew, you know what has been the results in education. Where are the demonstrations of parents and children that have been affected by about a 33,000 total in grade 11 that have been decimated from the system? Where is the outcry? If it's not LPM and a few others doing the outcry, raising the issues in Parliament, articulating the issues, trying to provide answers, putting together a package to make proposals to the President and to ministers, who else is there to make these noises? And that is the question we must ask.
Okay.
What type of future is it that Namibians want? How is it that so often problems are just getting chants and screams for a week and thereafter it's gone? We had the procurement board, Matthew, where they awarded these tenders in ways that the public began to complain. It stopped there. From the side of the public, those that were on Facebook and so on. We as LPM had to go and write letters. We had our press events. Then we organized a small picketing of 100 people. What was the end result? The tenders were withdrawn and they were re-advertised. So when it comes to actioning our concerns, we are not very good. We are good at complaining, which is an important value in democracy, because you have to complain and so on. But at some point we have to be able to do a little more than complaining. Jobs are not going to be created because of this budget. The best bet we have for young people is a short-term job of a maximum of 12 months. All this public procurement works and so on and so forth. Agriculture is not going to get a fair chance to ensure food self-sufficiency. We are not going to, and there's a drought looming there, they are telling us, we are not going to get a chance to, as a country, ever get ready for the fourth industrial revolution. We will be left behind more and more. And interestingly, countries whose societies were at each other's throats, countries where people decimated each other, and in particular countries like Rwanda. If you go today to Rwanda, the things that people do, the way they have reorganized themselves, the energy that the government has, the energy that society has, the unity of action because they are moving elsewhere, is very palpable. You would just do yourself good if you just go and search for major projects in Rwanda. You will find at least 6 or 7. They are building 3 hydroelectricity power stations. They are building new airports that will be able to accommodate 7 million people, not just in Kigali, but elsewhere in the country. They are building roads and railways to access goods and service and enhance their trade right from Tanzania into Rwanda. Yeah. You can see things have been done here. If you look back at this country and the reign of President Kengo, this is the 9th year. What would you say are the big infrastructural projects that would have a transformative impact in the social development framework, in the Human Development Index? What would you point at? Yeah.
Maybe he would argue that he became president at a time when the country's economy was teetering.
Correct. But you have had so many options that you could, at that instance, use to get the country moving forward. You had an opportunity when you were coming in, the Neckar Dam was being completed. You could immediately, in a year or 2, begin to create jobs for at least 20 to 30,000 people. A hectareage of 5,000 can employ at least 35,000 people because of the size of that land that is able to absorb even the most unskilled but trainable young Namibians. You could already have recorded the ability, unlike before, to export massive amounts of food and food produce. You could already have developed a significant value chain from the Neckar Dam down to Notre Dame, down to Osengir. You would already have created a major, not only a transportation sector, which could be further consolidated here, but a agro-food processing space and a zone in this country in that short period of time. There are other things that we could have done that we are good at. Solar energy. We could have by now become a net exporter of solar energy. We have had an opportunity where the giant South Africa has problems with electricity, and that we could have become a major generation center of electricity and export that on a fixed term contract, reversing the current situation where we are a net importer, where we import about 70% of our electricity from Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. We would have reversed it right now. Why? Because the money is there from the international community. Even with the Negerdal Dam, the money is there. There's a company that already is operational in Namibia whose reputation is known, that sits with a 500 million. They brought their princes and their CEOs and said, we've got the money. Tell us, what do you want us to produce? We'll create jobs for you.
Yeah.
You tell us what to do. You are the bosses. We'll make the money available. Part of the produce we'll take because we are just a desert country. You create jobs. You have food at a very cheap price that you can sell. Already on those two scores, this president could have been a major success story in his presidency. They have not done that. We are still keeping to the old model of importing electricity, for instance. We could have changed it, Matthew. So there are so many things we've done. Yes, he has given old age people something, but it's not significant in terms of the day-to-day subsistence of people. And if you look at issues of black tax and how many grandparents are taking care of children, if you look at the questions of expenses about water and electricity bills that affect the domestic economy of every family and every household right now in this country in ways that can be repaired by a simple write-off that just takes one cabinet decision. Yes. They have not been able to do that. So the economy is not being put at a place where you can say, here we have now pressed the reset button. Here we've pressed the reset button for young people. Matthew, yesterday in my presentation, and I was quite saddened, for a decade from 2010 to 2020, DBN gives about 149.5 million to enterprises led by young people. In those 10 years, there have been budgets, at least 10 cycles of budget speeches made that would target youth and youth empowerment, this thing that the president kept on speaking about, enterprises in 121 constituencies. In those 10 years, that 149.5 million represents 7.6% of what the DBN gave from its loan book. This is how important our young people are for us. I would have said if about 60% would have been given to youth-led enterprises, we are genuinely walking the talk about youth empowerment. Yes. But only 7.6% has been given to young people. What does it say about this government's commitment to young people? And then you take the line, draw a thread, and point to education and say, but what they are doing with young people in terms of education demonstrates precisely what they are doing with young people in terms of their businesses. So if you are even successful in school, the chances of you getting your enterprise, if you're a brilliant business person, you have a brilliant idea, the chances of you getting money to start your business from the current scorecard of the DBN, you will probably never be part of the 7.6% allocation that is given. Yeah. So it's really sad, Matthew, where we are, and the rhetoric that these colleagues keep on articulating, the types of beautiful and flowery language that they use, and the situation on the ground where people are first and foremost hungry, literally hungry, where they are literally homeless, where they have, as a hotel worker or as a petrol attendant or as a cleaner in a private sector organization, or as a tea lady, or as a garden boy or garden girl or garden man or garden woman. These people having to take taxi have no place that they can even tangibly call their piece of land. They have to spend about, in areas such as Windhoek, 800, 900, 1,200 on leasing somebody else's kaya. And many of them have done this for 15, 20 years. And they are saying, if I can get a piece of land, take this corrugated iron sheets and the poles and put it on a piece of land that on paper is mine.
Yeah.
Already I'm making a saving of 1,200 as a security guard. That type of basic economics and the application of basic economics, sensible, common sense policies, that is not there.
Yeah.
And you can go and ask the question, yeah, but Swartbooi, you colleagues had a mayor in the city of Windhoek. You are correct. During our time with the colleagues that were with us, Job and others, in a space of 6 months after IPC was out of management committee, in a space, Matthew, of 6 months, the mayor of the city of Windhoek, SADC governors, handed to residents in the city 30,000 PTOs. Never been done before. 30,000 PTOs.
Yeah.
And what we have actually had was a backlog of 120,000 PTOs in the informal settlements where people are saying, colleagues, we elected you. Can you please just give us PTOs? So the first thing we did is we are not going to allow police to demolish shacks at all. Once we
Let me
became
just cut your train of thought.
Yes.
We'll head for a short break.
Sure.
So we can continue with this.
Yeah.
And of course, the primary basis of your party, the issue of land
That's right.
and how it impacts your mandate. Of course, you'll say that it's how the people voted and so on that cuts your legs a bit short,
Yeah.
but we'll talk about that after the break.
No problem.
Well, to our viewers, we head for a short break and we'll be back to continue this conversation. Stay tuned.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Well, welcome back from the short break. Honorable Swartbooi, you touched on the issue of City of Windhoek. Quite a hot potato.
Absolutely.
Just by mentioning it already, I'm sure the viewers, their blood is already boiling. Because some are saying that this was a perfect opportunity for the opposition to now show that, look, after 32 years, there is an alternative.
Yeah.
A working alternative. What happened here? Why are there these sentiments to say that the opposition, this feeling that people harbor to say that the opposition failed to harness this opportunity? Do you think you guys failed to harness this opportunity?
I think there are merits to that argument just as much as there are demerits to the argument. The first is when Namibians go and vote, they should now know that just as you go into any shop, you have varieties. And these varieties of fruits or vegetables are produced in particular ways and particular weather conditions and particular soil types and so on and so forth. It's the same thing. If I may have drawn a comparison that is a bit funny, but take it from there and bring it to a political party. Not all opposition parties come from the same ideological basis. That's a very important thing. Not all party political leaders in their totality understand the current and the future conditions and direction of the country and of society as people think should be automatic because we are another bunch of parties other than SWAPO. So you've got to therefore appreciate that when you want to group political parties with different identities, with different ideologies, with a different vision and with a different sense of origin, you've got to now then understand that these parties are actually different and that there's no way that you can group them in any singular way. That, I think, is the very first thing we must do. And therefore, the call that people have that there must be a coalition therefore becomes premature because it's not based on any analysis that is thorough to say, who are these people? Who are these political parties that we are saying they must form coalitions? Have people ever taken the opportunity to sit down and put documents, founding documents of these parties next to each other and analyze them and say, look, these political parties are ideologically not connected. We have very, very serious concerns when people call for the sake of removing SWAPO out of power, apparently, therefore, the answer is for coalition governments to be formed. Doesn't work like that. There is a broader spectrum of considerations that you'll have to factor into that type of approach, and it's not happening. It's not even the egos of leaders. It's just about who is this political party? What understanding and ideological approach do they have to matters of society? How do they understand the social development trajectory of society? How do they understand the history of society? How do they understand the place of this country and of our society in the continent and in the world? That is a problem. So if you just take all of that I located for you and bring it into the city of Windhoek, I would say, well, there is a merit that we could have said, look, let's become mature and deal with this question of working together, setting aside all differences. That's important.
But
it was done twice.
Yeah. Do you think, as opposition parties, perhaps they also fell for this narrative to say, get Swartbooi out by all means, and then ignored the fact that ideologically you are quite different?
Different. I think that could probably be very true. But even if we were then ideologically different, if we could then become pragmatic about the issues, which at some stage we did, we said, look, what is your economic policy? This is our economic thinking. What is your ideological posturing? This is ours. What is your vision, your mission, your values, and so on? Because with us, if a councillor is found wanting in terms of issues of accountability and so on, we deal with that person. If we have to be in a coalition and your colleague is found to be in a corrupt deal with X, Y, and Z, it puts us in a problem. Can we get rid of that person? What would your internal party policies be about circumstances like that? These things could not be answered. But we then said, all right, fine, let's move to a practical approach. Here we have a bunch of people called councillors from political parties, and the bottom line is the residents need services, water and electricity, and then land and the question of safety and security, the question of getting this city into a global city stage and to prepare this space for a fourth industrial revolution. What would it require? It requires us to say, look, let us set aside what we can set aside and let's agree on a practical development agenda. Even that we could not agree on. We then said, okay, let us then form voting blocks. And then we can agree who will be mayor, we say who will be management, and rotate it. Twice the mistake was made. First, AR went with IPC. Nothing moved. Because IPC dominated, out of the 5 positions at management committee, they dominated the 4, which was wrong. Then LPM was outside, but we would continue to support the colleagues. The engagement between AR and PDM and IBC didn't work. We got to the scene. We said, some of the mistakes that were made, let us not make it, including that when problems occur, let the top leadership of these parties always meet and iron out issues so that we can give direction to our colleagues. We tried that. Didn't work. Everything we agreed with IBC ended up being objected to by IBC in the management. Remember, there were 4 again with us and 1 person from us in the management committee. So I'm getting to a narrative, Matthew, about where we are now. Twice, one party that does not have majority was given 4 seats on management committee out of 5. We got to a vote of no confidence for IPC, and then there was a fair arrangement in terms of Swartbooi coming in the management. There was a greater hubris and a mixture of people that were now there. Things began to move because everybody said, let's move things, let's make progress. Then December comes. Swartbooi uses the same model of IPC that did not work. They now want deputy mayor and 3 positions out of an MC of 5, including chairperson of MC. And we said, already if you get 3 positions on MC, we are back to where we were. You don't have an overwhelming majority, but you want to have a determining fundamental majority in MC. It cannot work. Then they got deputy mayor. They then nominated Nuto, got mayor. We said, fine, we retreat. You continue with your stuff. The people that they thought would work with them didn't work with them. So we ended up with a coalition or a group of 5 AR LPM, and PDM. 5 on one side, IBC on the other side, SWAPO on the other side, with NUDO helping to work with SWAPO. Eventually, the minister started speaking about dissolving, and then we said, look, the cost of an election in Windhoek is very expensive. But the minister, we thought, was also just playing. That eventually, for him to try to appoint an administrator in Windhoek will not work, because an administrator ends up not doing many things, because the Local Authorities Act is very clear. There are certain specific things that can only be signed by a CEO. So we looked at the indebtedness and the financial viability of the city and said, okay, fine, at the last minute, let's put in 2 people. We agreed with activist Ampanda, you go in, and then we sent in 1 person for the interest of the residents of Windhoek, so that we don't have to have an administrator or any dissolution of the local authority. But the point now here is, there are interests that those of SWAPO have in wanting to promote some of them, their business associates and so on. And the agenda of giving people land, of advancing the principle of pre-allocation, these things are not on the top of the agenda of SWAPO party. And that is how, without analyzing things, SWAPO wanting now from the back door to be dominant, which we are not going to allow them, Netumbo goes to Okaku and spews venom.
We are living in hell as residents. Maybe you guys don't feel it.
You understand, but that hell is one of the reasons why I left SWAPO. Sebep left SWAPO and many others left SWAPO because of that hell. So we were asking her yesterday, if where other political parties are governing, if those areas are hell, according to her, can she please be so kind to show us where is heaven and to show us the doors of heaven, so that we can go to those areas where there is paradise. Strange, she cannot show, because the hell that we are living under collectively is hell caused by SWAPO. If you look at the areas where they govern, from Kavango, Zambesi, the Oshanas, or Hangwena, everywhere, unemployment, landlessness, homelessness. If there are houses, you cannot afford them because energy houses are completely above the affordability range of most Namibians. No new industries that have been developed, even in the north. And our northern communities must really sit back and think about what SWAPO has done for them. Go to Oshakati, Ongwe Diva, go to Helau Nafiti, or go to Enana, or go to Otapi, or Ruakana. Tell us whether there are factories that have been developed, whether there are state-of-the-art factories that have been developed as a result of the policies and the financing by SWAPO government, and whether because of the insourcing of investors from abroad, industries developed where northern young children, northern workers, and northern communities are living a decent life. Nothing has been done, nothing. They have brought in roads, they have brought in a lot of houses, which many people cannot afford. They have brought in, through private sector presence there, merely shopping complexes, and what government has done through MTC is a bit of network towers that have been created, a bit of university that they have brought in. Beyond that, fundamentally, our people in the north have been living from their mahangu fields and from their cattle, from their sweat, from the labor of their parents, great-grandparents, and ancestors. There's nothing that SWAPO brought to the northern parts of our country. Nothing. Right now, our northern communities of Oshakati, who were involved in helping to resolve a challenge in Oshakati, where people were being chased out by the local authority in exchange for that land to go to a Chinese person to develop flats. We have been involved in helping those communities. Our northern communities have become victims of the new land grab by the elite with international capital formations and alliances. And the northern communities, some of them, still believe that SWAPO can rehabilitate itself under Netumbo, who has been there in government from 21st March 1990 until today without changing anything. So our future looks bleak. The current budget does not imagine or help us to imagine a new day. Why do I say that? In particular, the question of land, in particular service land and housing.
We have to wrap up now. So just
only 96 million is being allocated to the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development for providing services to urban areas. What is 96 million? It is like a hotcake it will not go anywhere.
Yeah.
While you are spending 200 million on renovations of a stadium, where do you balance the interest of our people?
Yeah.
So we have a problem, a crisis of leadership, but we must talk to our citizens, our voters, whose fundamental vision of society will shape how they vote and how they take attention away from SWAPO to others that are actually speaking sense. And this is really the challenge. They are giving them now a nearly 80-year-old woman who is a has-been, has been tested, has been tried. She cannot say how many investments she has brought to any area in this country as a foreign affairs minister, as a deputy prime minister. These things matter. The record of people in government matters, not just the brand. The record of people matter. And if the brand has failed, it tends to show that the individuals in that brand have failed. Right now, for us...
I have to cut you short now.
Okay.
We'll have you back in studio, hopefully not far from today.
Okay.
So just wait for our call.
Can I just say this quickly? For us, on the question of land that you asked, we are preparing to hand over 700 erven in Marintal to young people and to all members of society, of community in that town. Another 188 in Gibeon, another 370 in Keetmans. And we have created jobs in smaller towns, villages like Marintal, like Stambreed, 300 jobs in Marintal. We have cleaned up local authorities from corruption. We are getting new people that we are hiring so that we have a new approach to governance that understands accountability and transparency and the viability of public institutions. That value of accountability and transparency is what society needs now, and we are performing on all those fronts. Thank you.
All the best with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming through this evening. Thank you. To our viewers, that's it from the Evening Review team. Have a pleasant evening. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place.